How you doing, folks? You're watching Onward with Onrie Live, and I'm your host, Onrie Compen. I am glad to be back today because I got a great guest. He's hanging out in backstage, and I'm about to bring him out right now. I have seen this guy absolutely slay at conventions. He has been on the road for a number of years now. We first met at WonderCon in 2017 where we were across from each other. And this guy had a very, very impressive, beautiful-looking book. He's been taking it on the road. After that, I started seeing him at shows all over the country, and he's just an amazing guy. So, ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Andrew Kafoury to the show. Andrew, how you doing, sir? Hold on, let's get the whole display in there. How you doing, brother?
Doing good. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic. Do us all a favor. Tell us who you are, what you do, and all that lovely stuff.
My name's Andrew Kafoury. I like the way you pronounced it, though.
I apologize. I fucked it up.
I haven't heard one before. That's nice. I hear a lot of them. I run a company called AK Comics, and we publish a title called Nomad the Unconquerable. And Nomad is a sword and sorcery versus alien invader series. It's currently 7 volumes. Each volume is about 48 to 52 pages. And it's really just about a crusader and a warrior and a fighter. And it's about, the unbreakable spirit of a champion, and it's not something that I think mainstream titles are focusing on right now. It's the kind of stuff I grew up with, and I'm just trying to keep the stories that inspired me alive today.
I think there's a lot to be said about that. And I'm actually kind of, now that we're in full swing cancel culture mode and all of our conventions are being stripped away from us, I have decided that I need to make use of this time by coming up with a brand new series. And one thing I got to say that I really admire about you is that you came up with this by yourself. You were inspired by things that you liked reading and are now doing it. So how did it start for you? How did you get from point A to point B to where you are now?
Well, I was in New York City in 2004, and I was working on some projects, and I was taking writing classes at the HB Studios in Manhattan, and I was learning a lot about characters and arc, and just really the idea that the contradiction that drama explores. That was really fascinating to me. And I took some of those ideas and I sent it to some producers in LA, and they looked at about 6 or 7 projects I sent, and they said, okay, there's this one we think is kind of neat. You should expand on that. So I decided I would get some illustrators to try to put that project together. And I think we started doing that in 2011. And then at about 2014, we were ready to share. So we went to Wizard World Portland, and we rented out a space or something. And so we're right there at the show, and then right across from us is Adam West and Burt Ward.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, and so it's okay, we just spent 2-3 years making this idea, and then there's the king himself right across from us.
Fuck yeah.
Now, Adam West didn't know we were there, but we knew he was there.
Well, I'm sure he saw you guys more than a couple times. It's interesting because I think that same year I went and did Wizard World New Orleans, and across from me was I forget his name, the Green Ranger, Tommy, but I forgot the actor's name. It's just evading me. But that guy had a goddamn following. I mean, every time he showed up at his booth, it was just swarmed, and I was directly across from him. And a lot of creators get really upset about that, but you and I have had experiences. I remember you were telling me in New York Comic Con, you had my old position in New York Comic Con, and I remember you coming up to me and you're like, "Yeah, I'm right across from Marvel, and it's kind of
Marvel was right across from me, actually."
Oh yes, exactly. That's how you make that shit work. And by the end of the show, you're like, "Fuck it, doesn't matter. Marvel's watching you work now because who's really there anyway? It's really just reps from the company. It's not really they're there to sell comics. You're there to sell comics. They're there to promote, give away free t-shirts and shit like that. But it's those environments that really allow you to thrive. And what's really kind of cool is I always love being near celebrities, especially comic celebrities, because they draw in the crowds. And then all of a sudden, those people are right there. They're just right fucking there. And I also love being near bathrooms and, the cafeteria. A lot of people don't like that. I fucking love it. It's just like you're getting traffic. Everybody has to go to the bathroom. Everybody wants to eat. Everybody wants to see the celebrities. And boom, there you are. Now you have a chance to pitch them your idea. And you're not shy about it either. You totally fucking – did you sell out at New York Comic Con last year?
Yeah, we sold 570 books.
That is incredible. I was so proud when you came and told me that. You fucking killed it over there. And you did really well at Baltimore Comic Con too, didn't you?
Yeah, at Baltimore is a more difficult show. We only rented one space. I actually like Baltimore more than New York Comic Con, even though New York Comic Con is sort of the ultimate.
Yeah, they're different shows. But what is it about Baltimore that you like more?
Well, there are so many 1% creators that go to Baltimore who don't go to New York, who you can see. I think Brian Azzarello was right there to see Walt Simonson and Louis Simonson. I met Marv Wolfman, and I love Marv Wolfman's writing. And so walking up to Marv Wolfman and being like, dude, I really like you. And he's like, dude, thanks.
It's a much more accessible show. It's not like New York Comic Con where you're just like, it's a constant bombardment. Yeah, I agree with you.
Yeah. And just being able to, I think Lee Weeks, who I love Lee Weeks.
Great artist.
Yeah. And he's just right down the aisle from you. And, who's the guy that writes Brian Vaughn? Is that the dude who writes Saga?
Yeah.
Brian Vaughn's walking by, and he's like eyeing the booth that we're making, and not saying anything. It keeps going, but that there he was, and I love his writing and I love his work. So Steranko, Steranko's right there.
Steranko, dude, that guy, he is a fucking showman. He's a great showman. Did you ever hear his story about what happened with him and Bob Kane? How he smacked Bob Kane?
No.
Oh, well, it's a great story. Check it out. There was a point in time when Bob Kane was also a showman. He also liked to steal credit from all the creators. He called everybody who worked on Batman his ghosts. He was the creator and the sole creator of Batman. He did everything. He never really gave credit to anybody. He was like the exact opposite of Stan Lee. And he kind of liked to punk people, and he thought he could do it to Steranko, and he, I think, knocked him in the back at a show, just kind of like trying to show his dominance. And at one point, Steranko went back and smacked him in the face. It was
wow. I was a big Batman fan. I've always been a big Batman fan.
Oh yeah, who isn't? Yeah,
I read. Did you know the Batwing? The whole concept was actually Leonardo da Vinci had an idea for flight that was like a Batwing. It's in a jar. Yeah. So, but I didn't know about Bob Kane and Bill Finger until it was pointed out to me maybe 2 years before that documentary came out. And, how Bill Finger created Gotham City, the writer that they brought on board, and the politics of the industry, and, who got credit for what, and then who's, just how that collaboration went down. And I was working with a creator, I shouldn't say who, but they're way up there. And this person just said, I don't know how Bob Kane could have worked with Bill Finger and, hung out all night smoking cigarettes with him in the same apartment, for years collaborating and working together. And then, knowing that Bill was financially in so much trouble and Bob, had all the money and didn't even, throw him anything. And, so if Steranko gave him a smack, that's okay with me.
Oh, fucking Steranko's awesome. I've never actually met the guy. I've never hung out with him or anything like that, but it's definitely would be a check off my bucket list to do so. And he's very accessible, you know what I mean? And that's what's cool about shows like Baltimore is you do get to meet a lot of creators. So I think now it has been established that you are a comics lover, and that's what's really gotten you into this industry. I find that many creators try to get into this because they want to make a quick buck. They want to come up with that property that they can then sell and make tons of money on, and then kind of sit back and not really continue to contribute. But you have been extremely committed to your series. You've gotten 7 issues out of it out so far, and you're going strong with it. So what is it about this character? And not only that, you're solely committed to this too. I mean, do you have other projects in the works, or is this like your main squeeze right now?
That's a good question. Well, for a couple years, we've been developing Nomad for film and television, but you know how the film and television people are.
Dude, don't even get me started, brother. It's a fucking nightmare.
You know how the film and TV people are. They're so when Nomad is ready to be released with like a film and television version, it'll look pretty different than what I made.
Of course.
Yeah, what we end up making, but I like stories, like I like stories, and I like understanding the architecture of stories. And I'm really fascinated with why certain stories reach people and why certain stories don't. Why was I attracted to certain stories, and why did other stories put me off? As far as comics, I think that there's a really unique relationship that you share with a comic book that you don't share with a movie or a novel.
Yeah. You're casting everything in your own head. The sound effects, the voices, everything. Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, I liked the X-Men growing up. I liked the Daredevil. I liked Batman. I really liked the Avengers. I kind of liked Spider-Man. I liked Spider-Man's Rogues Gallery more than I liked Spider-Man. I mean, I don't know. I think I sort of liked the characters that had the coolest Rogues Gallery.
You know what I'm surprised you haven't mentioned out of that list is Conan. Because I see a lot of Conan in Nomad.
Yeah, so that's interesting. I was never a big sword and sorcery guy. I was never a big sword and sorcery guy, and I was never a big science fiction guy. I mean, I liked sci-fi, but it wasn't my thing. I liked writing short horror stories. That's
right on.
Yeah, that's what I was kind of into. But every time I wrote a short horror story, I was like, I just kind of sound like a copycat of someone else.
That's how I feel about superheroes, which is exactly what I'm trying to tackle right now with my next project. Is I want to do that superhero story to prove that I can do it. But every time I sit down and start working on something, I just realize, well, that's been done before, and that's been done before, and so on and so forth. And like you, I also was not a big history fan. It was really just the fact that the story of Yi Sun-shin is what really captivated me. And I think that there's a lot that Nomad and Yi Sun-shin have in common. I mean, they're both warriors, who can't be defeated in battle, who are constantly going up against impossible odds. And
Nomad, I should say, Nomad can be defeated, but he will not be broken.
Well, so same with Yi Sun-shin. I mean, it's more figure of speech, so to speak, right? But yeah, of course, every man can be any man can be broken, but any man can be defeated, but can they be broken? That's what I should have said.
Well, I think the whole idea of like the unconquerable was like, will not break his spirit, will not kneel, you can imprison him, but you can't,
you can't own him.
Yeah.
And how much of that really, how much of that really defines your spirit? Because I mean, I know what I do is not easy. I've been working really hard to get to a point where I can actually say I'm making a somewhat okay income doing this. So I'm always fascinated when I talk to other creators because you're doing the same exact thing I am. You're on the road with me. You're constantly, I've seen you at so many shows and you are selling your books. You gotta, I mean, how are you?
I think, didn't Babe Ruth say something? It's hard to beat someone who doesn't give up. Someone asked me, a story collaborative asked me, they said, do you make Nomad because you just want to control everything? Is that what this is about? Is it about you having, the final say and how the vision unfolds and things like that? And I was like, no, I started making Nomad and the story kind of spoke to me. I began to notice there were patterns in my life that unplayed in these stories, but, it was, if you want to participate in the industry, you have to make it happen for yourself, like period, the end, yeah, it's true. You can there are other ways to participate in the industry than just, creating your own content.
Of course, yeah,
But
you can do so many different things. Yeah,
but like Nomad opened the door for me to be able to participate at the level that I wanted to participate in. It enabled me to meet the people I needed to meet, to have the meetings I needed to have, to understand the industry myself, and how to use stories to help other people, and understanding that storytelling was about helping other people, and understanding that storytelling was to make people better problem solvers, And so Nomad has all of these problems, and he, tries to solve them. And like what he learns about himself is what other people can take with them in their journey into life. You know what I'm saying? I
agree.
Yeah, someone described storytelling to me in a way that I thought was really powerful. He said stories are a flight simulator that societies use to become better problem solvers.
I agree.
So right, you experience the story, and you can crash or land safely, and then you can take what you learned and go out with you into society and become someone who's more productive, right, at bringing people closer together and making the civilization function at a higher level. And that is why story is so important to our species, and there's story, there's the business of story, there's there's people's opinions of stories, there's people who try to control what stories, are supposed to look and sound and feel like. And there's all these different elements to it. But at the end of the day, it's about helping people. And I had someone come to my booth once. I don't think I've ever told this story. We were in Seattle, and this guy came up to me, and he started crying, and he said, Andrew, he said, I got your book last year, and my 4-year-old daughter died like 3 months before I bought your book. And, my guy Nomad, he goes through a lot of pain, and a lot of terrible things happen to him on his journey to try to make the world a better place. And this guy said, reading your book helped me overcome the despair that I was going through. And it's like, then he gave me a hug, and it was just, and how does a Comic-Con where it's like, that was one moment in time, and then this person moved on, and, 50 other things happened in the next hour. But like, it just really haunted me. And that's the type of thing that I'm trying to do, is reach someone like that and help someone like that. So, it sounds trendy, but if that's the only person who ever...
No, that's not. I've had experiences like that on many occasions, and that's the one thing I think we need most right now. See, the one thing I've noticed is that every day when we're on these fucking things right here, see, this is our prison cell right here because of our current situation. Yep. And it's our outlet into the world. This is how we communicate with people. This is how we get that social interaction that we need, because when we're out in public, we're all forced to wear masks right now. We can't actually sit down and have conversations. And when you actually talk to someone man to man or man to woman or whatever the case is, a lot of barriers get broken. And whatever stipulations you see from what you come across on the internet, these articles that are purposely written to divide us and make us feel isolated, fearful, hated, and all these other things.
To control our spending habits away from the independent creators.
That's absolutely true. I mean, look how we're both. I'm glad you said that, because I'm just as affected. I don't, like, my sales are way down, as I'm sure many of our contemporaries are. And the thing is that the experience you just talked about, this is what makes us keep going. It's our readership. And the one thing I love about guys like us is that we're in this because we know what our message is. There are a lot of movie directors out there, comic book writers who have very duplicitous messages in their work that are actually negative. And when you kind of look at it, they're kind of trying to say, well, this is what we are. We're ugly. We're disgusting. What I really appreciate about what you and I are on the same mission. It is to reach people, to bring out the best in people. I think that's what Stan Lee did best. with everything he did with Marvel. And you're not the first person. Almost no one I bring on the show mentions their attachments to DC characters. And that's not to say that DC characters are bad in any way, because, you know, Superman, he's the very definition of wholesome and just, and the American truth, justice in the American way. But everybody always brings up the humanity and their ability to relate to the Marvel characters so much more, because I think that what Stan really did there was he really brought out this idea of bringing out the best in ourselves, and not discounting our downfalls either as humans. You know, like we have plenty of shortcomings.
Well, you know, can I just add to that?
Please.
You know, someone emailed me, and I won't say who, and they said, "Hey, we want you to come on a podcast, and we want you to talk about certain politics in comic book." I don't call it politics. It's not politics. It's something else. But they wanted to talk about the way the industry was, and were these messages alienating readers and everything like that. And is that why the industry is, you know, suffering sales-wise and things? And I emailed him back, and I said, you know, the problem is that Stan Lee's not with us anymore. You know, if you want to know why it's hard for the comic book community to be able to market themselves or how they can get readers engaged, who's the guy that's going to jump up on the table anymore and say, hey, in issue 6 of, you know, like,
hey, that's actually that's us.
Yeah,
that's
right,
us.
right. We're the ones who go out person to person.
Absolutely.
We're the ones. Yeah, you know, but like, Stan Lee knew how to sell comic books.
Absolutely, he did. And the guys who are at these companies now at Marvel and DC, they are kind of like ushered in after years of, you know, kind of working desk jobs where they don't really have to put on that face. I mean, sure, they do panels and they do things like that, but there's really no spokesman. And the writers and the creators of these companies are kind of like are like athletes. They move wherever the contract goes. So like, you know, you got Bendis, who totally breathed fresh air into Marvel, and, you know, in the turn of the century. And now he's jumped ship and gone to DC, where he's, you know, trying to do the same thing again. But you know, I agree with you. There's not like a figurehead for Marvel who's really able to fill Stan's shoes, and I don't think DC has one either.
Yeah, but when was the last time we were all like, good news, everybody, you know, the mystery villain in issue 9 of 10 is Dr. Doom, right? Dr. Doom was behind it all, you know? And like, I miss that about comic books. You know, I haven't had a conversation like that with people about what's happening in the industry for a long. I think because Thanos, you know, so it moved into the movies, like Marvel moved into the movies, and you know, I think the movies have replaced that.
The movies have taken on the
national dialogue.
Yeah, it's where all the exciting stuff happens now. Now, you know, I will say this. I don't know if you've read some of Jonathan Hickman's stuff with X-Men, but he's been doing some kind of like some interesting things, which there's just so many books out there that it's hard for me to absorb them all, and I just can't. I don't even know where to start.
The guy Lee Moyer, who paints Nomad, he has the Hickman X-Men, and he says it's fantastic, and he said that it's probably what the template for the Marvel movies will be.
I think that would be ideal if they decide to go that route. It'll be interesting to see how they bring them in overall, but you know, kind of straying away from, you know, the point of you know, the mainstream comics and talking about, you know, because we can nerd out about that all day, but I really want people to be nerding out about you, because, you know, you're this awesome creator who's going to shows and everything like that. And
dude,
you know,
we were literally 7 months ago. You know, we were at New York Comic Con. 3 months ago, I was in Chicago hanging out with the Night King from Game of Thrones, right? Like, yeah, like we were crushing it. I was talking to the executives at the Sci-Fi Network. I had the best you know, spots at Comic Cons all across the United States for the main shows. I was developing a pretty avid reader base. I was noticing that my books weren't getting resold on Amazon, so people were keeping them. You know, there was a buzz going. I had a momentum and a buzz going, and then COVID happened. And as an independent creator, I'm concerned how I get that momentum back.
I think that you're not alone in your thinking, and I'm worried about the same thing. I've had I went through a pretty brutal week last week, so I'm ready to get back on the floor. I don't fucking care about any pandemic or anything. I'm ready to just put on a mask. If everybody at Costco and Target and Walmart and every department store can do it, and every hospital doctor, is wearing masks, I can wear a mask for 10 hours and pitch books.
Let me ask you this. What if they stopped selling space to people who were not making comic book stuff?
I don't think we have to worry about that. I really do think these shows, they're getting hit the hardest. Yeah. Because, think about it. We only put at max a couple grand in for a show. And, right now our spaces have been sort of reserved because it's just next year. Cancel culture will end at the end of 2020, probably after the elections take place. This just all happened at such a bad time that it's just it's probably just better to assume that it's you'll cancel everything.
I think maybe I should clarify what I meant. What if the venues were smaller and more concentrated just on?
Well, that's what I want to get back and find out. So I was ready to go to Tampa Bay Comic-Con because that show got okayed in May, and I was really kind of cool, there's a show happening. I'm ready. I'm going to do it. But then I thought about it, and I'm I should really do some research before I decide to commit to this. So I spoke with a couple doctors, including my primary, and they gave me some advice on how to kind of navigate this because they're exposed to this worse stuff than I am, and even if I did this show, I would still not be as exposed as they are. So I had a strategy, booked my table, was getting excited, starting to build myself mentally for returning to the con scene, and then all of a sudden it got canceled last week because Florida saw this huge spike in cases. So, and then after that, other shows started canceling, and now I'm down to maybe a handful of shows that are left that haven't canceled yet, but I'm just at the point now where I'm you know what? Fucking cancel them because it's just going to happen anyway. And there's no point, even if they said they're going to do it, I wouldn't even believe it because, it's just, it's hard to believe with everything that's going on right now. So here's a question for you now, taking it back to you. You're going through the same thing. When did this really, how have you been navigating? How did this hit you? What have you been up to?
Yeah, let's see. Well, we were in Chicago. Were you in Chicago?
Yeah, that's my hometown.
Yeah, we were in Chicago, and then I came back home, and then 10 days later, the NBA player got sick, and Tom Hanks exposed that he was sick, and it was just lights off across the nation, on television. That was a pretty wild day. But we were right about to start distributing our books, right when all the comic book stores closed. So what I decided to do was to just go back and improve the content we've already created to make it even more commercially competitive. So we're redrawing some pages. I'm just strengthening the pitch for film and television that I've been working with the company down in LA. Getting that project closer to development. And I'm trying to work on other projects. Like you said, you wanted to work on something new. So I'm just going to start focusing on other hero quests and other stories that maybe could reach more people, and just essentially improving myself. And I think that that's a lot of what the Nomad universe hopes to inspire in other people, is that you change the world when you change yourself, not when you change the world. You know what I mean? You can't really change the world. You can influence it and you can sway it, but how you relate to what's going on around you, you have control over that. And so Nomad deals with that, and I suppose that's what I'm doing for myself. I'm just making myself as strong as I possibly can. So when the time is right, I can actually return to the industry with content that's even farther above industry standard than I already had.
Now, have you gone through periods, I know I have, especially recently, where you just get really, really depressed and just what's this all fucking for? Why is this happening? I've put so much time and effort into this. I was getting somewhere, and then this fucking happened. kind of like to me, and I believe this is still alive. I have great faith in our country, and I absolutely despise articles that try and make us look like we're this backwards society. That kind of stuff really ticks me off, because my family, they left Russia with no money in their pockets. They were ostracized and discriminated against because of we're Jewish, and I wasn't born in Russia. I was born here, but my family left all that to come to America and build.
I read your graphic novel.
Oh yeah, about my grandfather. Yeah, well, yeah. You know, in that case, you know what went on, and this is truly a country where you can do anything you want, and I don't give a fuck. I've been everywhere. I've traveled outside of the country. There are very few countries that, even if they had Comic-Con cultures, they're not as prominent or as big or as frequent as what you see here. This is a country that is a melting pot. It is not perfect. It has a lot of issues that it needs to work out, absolutely. But in the whole, this is a country where you can literally pursue your dreams full time, and being an independent comic book publisher, it works here better than it does in any other part of the world. I won't change my mind on that. That's something that I feel very strongly about. That is something that, I think the fact that we have never seen stuff just get straight up canceled like this, and it really kind of tears me down,
Yeah, that's a good. Well, so for me, I think a lot of it is just about how do you cope with despair, and understanding that. So let's see if I can. I think the story, as I understand it, was someone asked the film professor at UCLA, like, what was the difference between Steven Spielberg and a director that never went anywhere? What was the difference between a storyteller who could really reach people with their stories and a storyteller that maybe had one hit and faded away? And this professor thought about it, and his response was, well, how did they cope with despair? And that the creatives who could not cope with despair, because we're more sensitive people by nature, those ones had a harder time sustaining careers. Whereas the ones who saw despair as a gift, that was an opportunity to get stronger, right? Because despair is a gift with many layers that takes years to unfold. You know what I'm saying? And like, when you understand that the despair that you're going through is actually an opportunity, and learning how to be grateful for the people or the situations or the circumstances that are making life harder for you, because that gives you an opportunity to be a better human being.
Yeah, so, to rise to the occasion. I agree.
Right. To be unconquerable. That's right. So how I'm coping with the situation is just saying, like, this is an opportunity for me to become a better storyteller, a better human being, and to make stories that can reach people that will make them better human beings and better problem solvers and lift the despair out of their lives. And understanding that, we have these industrial complexes. Like, you and I go to these shows, we're dealing with multi-billion-dollar corporations, and a lot of the consumers who come to these shows don't understand that these companies are, I don't want to like throw them under the bus entirely. They do a lot of good. I love these people, but like, they are trying to heighten your anxiety to control your spending habits. You know what I mean? And to make you kind of hooked on their algorithm, if you will, and by tapping into that young rebellious spirit that young people have and channeling that to get them to buy certain products. And that's what they're doing. And a lot of what you see, that's the pattern, that's the business model that they don't want you to know about.
And another thing to add to that, it's not about the story anymore. It's about, the algorithm. Now It's about, and it's interesting. Finish your thought, and then I want to add to it.
No, I mean, it's I prefer, like, when someone says, like, what comics are you reading these days, or what movies are you watching? I'm like, I go to the classics. Like the stories are just a lot better. There was maybe more of a desire to make a higher functioning civilization than we have today in the story department. And once again, I'm not trying to throw people under the bus. It's a complicated situation and things like that. But when I make something, it's to improve the quality of the lives of the people who consume it.
I agree.
And I think that's one reason why I'm having a harder time reaching people with my vision, because I'm not trying to contaminate, stain, or pollute people's minds and souls, you know?
Well, I have great faith that it's our endurance that will see us through. And the fact that our mission is what it is. I mean, let's be honest here, Andrew. We've been beaten to our knees. Guys like us have been beaten to our knees because we're crippled right now. How are we supposed to reach people? How can we reach people the same way we did before? And it's not possible to do it on the internet. We need to be there in person because it's about the experience. There is no other way. If there was, we would be doing it, and we wouldn't even be having this conversation. I wouldn't have time to talk to you, and you wouldn't have time to talk to me because you'd be busy selling books, and I would be doing the same thing. But we're in this situation. I have to tell you, as much as I'm not afraid to admit when I've had it, and I have been beaten to my knees. Have I been broken? No, but I have been challenged, and I will say that the one thing that honestly gives me encouragement to stand is knowing that there are people like you out there that are, going through the same thing and have this strong mental fortitude to keep on going. And I appreciate you saying that very much. I think you got a really strong spirit with what you're doing on your book and just constantly going at it. And I think that wherever we left off, I think if we keep that resolve in place, I think that once things pick back up, which they will, there's no other choice. There's no other way. We'll be fine. I mean, look at you mentioned sports. You mentioned the NBA. Think about every single athlete right now who is in their twilight year, or every rookie who is ready to prove himself. But particularly the athletes who are in the twilight of their careers, this is it. This was their last year to play. They're not going to be able to come back and play next year. And if they do, they're not going to be able to perform as well as they did before. Mm-hmm. And what about now? How are they supposed to provide? What are they supposed to do from there? This has killed a lot of things for a lot of people. But I think athletes have it rough. Where I consider us lucky is the fact that we don't have this short span of time that we can go out there and do amazing things. We can continue to do it until the day we die. And that's one thing that I really admired about Will Eisner, was that I mention him often because he's a fucking legend. But look, what did he do a year before he died? He created another graphic novel. He died and finished another graphic novel. That's where you want to. That's where I want to be, at least. And you look at Stan Lee, same thing with him. I mean, yeah, he wasn't creating comics, but he was out there signing and interacting with his fans. He was being a showman until he could not do it anymore. Yeah. And it didn't matter. Those guys, if you ask me, went through way more rough shit than we did with World War II. And I hope to God that we don't see a situation like that repeat itself in our lifetime, or in my children's lifetime, or in their children's lifetime. We don't need more war.
You know the psychology probably better than I do, but the sword master does not fear death. You know what that means?
Absolutely.
It doesn't necessarily mean that. What it means is that you are so focused on your craft, because your craft is your purpose. Yeah. And that you put your craft and your purpose before the malevolence and the despair that is inevitable in existence. So when it appears, you go right back to your craft and you sharpen that sword and you practice your fighting skills, and you do that until you can't take another breath. And that is the answer to, I think, what you and I are going through right now.
Absolutely, brother.
Absolutely right. Just don't fear death, man, because be a sword master, I guess.
Fuck yeah. No, well, that was Yi Sun Shin's saying, those who seek death shall live and those who seek life shall die. That's why I was ready to go back to Tampa. I didn't fucking care. I wasn't scared of no fucking virus. I would go out there and I'd fucking do it. And if any of these shows actually happen, if any of them can actually happen, because I don't want to call out anybody because it's nobody's fault. I completely understand why they're being canceled. But if a show happens, I will be right there. I will absolutely go. The first show that says it's happening and it's actually going to be doing it, I will keep going, because in that regard, I will not be broken. But I also look at it too from the aspect of let's stop looking at things as bad, because I think you made a really good point earlier about using this time to become stronger. And that's why I've really kind of like put myself on the spot to create something new, because, you know, I want to have something to show for all this time that I've spent, you know, aside. And granted, I've had lots of stuff going on. It's not like I have a lack of work going on. I mean, Yisun Shin's in production, and God only knows I have so much stuff going on at home. I got 2 boys I got to take care of. I got a household, you know, I got to take care of, and all this stuff. And, you know, I have freelance work that I've been doing as well. So it's not like I'm not busy. There's plenty of stuff for me to do during the day. In fact, I apologize. One of the reasons why I was late today is because I got caught up in fucking errands. You know, so it's not that I have a lack of things to do, but, you know, at the same time, there's this part of me that's eating at me. And it's really been fucking with me, bro. I'm telling you, for the last, like, since the end of May, it's been screwing with me. This need to create something new and something different. And it just hasn't come to me yet. It can't be historical, because I want to prove that I can go outside of that. It has to be superheroes.
So that's the spark.
Yeah, that's the spark, but not. There's like a little spark, you know, you're trying to light a cigarette lighter, and it's just all you're getting is sparks, and nothing's there, because every time I come up with something, I realize it's not right. Either it's been done before, or it just doesn't feel right in my soul.
No, there's just really quickly, like I think formula is really, really important. So when things have been done before, that's okay. It's okay to tell the same story over and over and over again. You know, societies have done that for 250,000 years. How long have we been talking? You know. I mean, it's
and everybody. I mean, look, Nomad and Yisun Shin are the same story essentially, just told in different ways, right? You know, but it's the same. It's the same concept essentially. You know, that the way I see it. You know,
I personally love good formula. As far as being original, you know. Someone told me once about the concept that being original is worthless, and what it basically means is it's there was a period of art like in the 1920s or 30s or something where I think because Picasso was so famous, a bunch of people started just doing random things, and they were like, look, it's a tire, the tire is art, you know, or here's a blank canvas, it's art or whatever. And the actual quality of the art, the economics of the art industry went down. And so the idea was that being original is worthless. There's no money in being original. I don't feel that Nomad is like that original of a project. I don't know who else does Sword and Sorcery versus Aliens, but it's a pretty formula hero quest, you know, with some differences. So like, don't be afraid of the formula, like embrace it. People want the formula. It will be original intuitively, simply if it is the spark that you are working from. Like you know what I mean? Like it'll be there organically if you just keep pursuing it, or you know, contact some story professionals and just say, this is my idea. Like, what can I do to make Act 1, 2, and 3 of this? You know, so that I like to do. Like I pretty much just do project workups now. Like I don't write scripts anymore. I write outlines. I will write like a Nomad script from time to time, or, you know, but if I'm working on something new, it's just I make a project outline and then I run it through professionals and I say, you know, what's working, what's not working, how can we better understand the story, understand these characters, how can we get, you know, the industry behind this project, you know, and so you know, that's what I would do if I were you.
No, it's very sound advice. You know, there was something that I was actually thinking about as you were mentioning this whole idea of being original.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not so much that I'm trying to be original, because even Yisun Shin, here's my quick, if I had to compare it to 2 projects, it's 300 meets Last Samurai. Okay, like it's all been done before. Even Yisun Shin has been done before me. So, you know, to say that, you know, being original is not my objective here in the sense of concept, because superheroes, that's the concept, right? So I don't think it's that, but like, have you seen the Watchmen show, the one that HBO put out? Okay, what do you compare that to? And you say, oh, you watch that show and you're like, oh, it's this meets that, but it's really its own thing, right? I mean, what do you compare it to? What can you honestly say? Oh, it's this. The plot line follows this, and that's something that I really.
There's some Greek myths in there somewhere.
There probably is. I mean, I just, when I see it though, it just doesn't come to me right away. And I look at stuff that's, I feel like I have to tell something that is the story I have to tell has to come from me, and it has to be something that feels organic and really feels right to me first. Then I can kind of worry about, impressing other people with it and seeing, what their take is in order to refine, like what you do. And speaking of that, you mentioned outlines. We do the same thing with Yi Sun-shin. We start with an outline. We outline the entire issue of what the scene, how many pages each scene is going to be, and that's my approach to one of the books that I'm working on right now with the creators. I actually have them focus on what are the story plot points for the entire issue. And it's funny because he turned in a draft, and I looked it over, and his draft just gives visual cues. And I said, no, treat each scene like it's its own story, expand upon it. And I'm not even at that phase yet, because I don't even know what the fuck, I don't know anything yet about it, but it just, everything I come up with constantly feels wrong. And I don't know, that's my hang up, that I'm trying to work through.
For me, it's, can this project get created and can it reach people? Like,
yep.
For me, it's like, I chose to make Nomad. That was my choice,
Sure.
Yeah, I think that this was gonna like open up a bunch of doors. No, but it was what I felt like doing. Now I'm more in a zone where I'm like, okay, if I'm gonna make something, can it run the gauntlet? And
it's our money going into this too. It's not like you're just like, hey, I'm gonna pitch a bunch of ideas.
Yeah, someone else's, right? Yeah. I actually don't have a problem coming up with new concepts. That's pretty easy for me. Like I'm pretty good at coming up with a character and a goal, have them pursue a goal and create opposition to goal, and understanding that my job is to make it as hard on my character as possible to accomplish their goal. And seeing it that way. That's actually pretty good. What I get is I get kind of scared to start something new because I know there's going to be so much pain involved in creating it, and I've already gone through all this pain in creating, something. So I don't, that's more the, what holds me back on certain things. I have a really good team though. I have a really good team of story collaborators. I have a really good team of illustrators. I have an extremely supportive family. I have a huge privilege of opportunity, when it comes down to being able to get some content created.
Yeah, I noticed you had your brother helping you out at shows. You had some friends helping you out. I mean, that's great. And I think family is extremely important. I also have family support, and I wouldn't be able to do any of this without it. And that's the thing too, is you don't want to trip on your feet. It's like, could I pitch anything? Sure. But here's the likelihood, here's the reality of what I'm looking at with whatever I come up with. The reality is that chances are I have to face a reality where my work is going to get rejected by every publisher, and I'm going to have to publish it myself, right? So if I have to publish it myself, not only do I have to fund the production of everything, but I got to go out and sell this. I have to believe. I have to be sold. I have to sell myself.
Right. And
essentially, it's like I'm playing chess with myself, and I have to see who's going to win. Is it me or me? But that's sort of the conundrum that I'm facing, because you got to focus. It's like what you've been saying throughout this entire episode. You have to be thinking about what is going to sell and what's going to get out there. It's not just about. I mean, it is about you. You do want to write something that that you feel like you can connect with, but there has to be a commercial sense to it too. And it's a fine balance, because I don't want to completely submit to the commercial sense of it, and I also don't want to alienate it by being original, like what you said, because there's no money in that either. So there's this fine balance here that I'm
and then there's
navigating.
And there's always someone who will just say, "Learn how to draw hands," and throw it back at you. Yeah. No, yeah. Yeah. That's I believe it's important when you take a project to market that you have a team behind it who is supporting you to reach people.
I agree with you. I agree with you 100%.
Yeah, you really need to have a good team of people. And, it's been hard for me to find that team. I went through some highs and lows getting a group of people together, and I think I'm still in the process of that,
Yeah, I think we always are. I mean, you always have to kind of keep your eye out there for fresh talent and people who actually want to contribute and people who can. And of course, there are people who say they can, but really don't understand what they're jumping into. And, everybody's excited. Everybody wants to work in comics until they're actually working in comics.
I work best. This is how I like to work.
Yeah.
I like it when someone comes up to me who knows what they're talking about and is like, you're wrong, and here's what you need to do. And then I can take that information and I can process it and I can be humble and learn from it and grow. Do you know what? As long as that person really knows what they're talking about. Like, I thrive in that type of a work environment.
I agree. I think all of us, we have to. We wouldn't,
right.
Andrew, we wouldn't be where we are right now if we couldn't take criticism.
Right.
Because the buck stops with us.
Right.
It's like if you're not going to be able to be told that your shit sucks, and that's another thing too is, being that this is me, I have to impress myself. At this point, I have been shut down so many times that now it's hard for me to even impress myself, and it really takes, I don't know if it's an issue of confidence. Maybe it's an issue of confidence. Maybe it's an issue of, have I learned how to think? Because, that's, you learn how to think and do all this stuff through, approaching professionals who know what they're talking about, and they tell you what works and what doesn't. So you kind of know, what not to do, like in terms of, making two-dimensional Superboy robot characters. You want to have characters that actually have motives. You want to be able to get in their heads and understand why they're doing certain things. And you can also, some approaches that I'm thinking at this point now, I have to create a deadline for myself and say, okay, if I don't come up with anything, then this is what's going to happen. I'm going to take all these characters and I'm going to just throw them at each other, and I'm going to force them to react to one another. And you just, I think it's trying different exercises, and it's seeing things from a different scope. And it's not that I'm blank on ideas. It's not like I have a blank canvas. I have a whole bunch of ideas out there. But it's connecting the dots, and certain points I'll feel like I've made some steps forward, and then I'll realize, no, this isn't working. And it's like 2 steps back. Now I have to restructure everything here. And it's literally, it's like I feel like I'm in a maze and there's no light on, like I'm walking through this dark maze and I'm constantly hitting something. But I know that if I just keep at it, sort of like what you were talking about, like without being broken, just walking through it and just constantly not giving up on it. I think that's kind of the thing. And with cancel culture in place, you could bet your ass I ain't giving up on shit right now,
Yeah,
come up with it.
I think the stories people need right now probably have a good environmental edge to it. I think that's going to be a big one.
I think so too, and I'm trying to use the experiences that we're going through right now to impact the work too, as I'm sure you will too eventually.
Yeah, I think it's incredible. I think some other themes that I like to explore are themes that toxic relationships aren't just between people; they're between civilizations and their industry and their infrastructure. And that like sometimes there's a good reason why a civilization's industry and infrastructure is functioning a certain way because it made sense 150 years ago. But then things have changed, and now the civilization needs to rethink these things. But people are still locked in a toxic relationship with how things function. And you know what I'm trying to say, right? And
absolutely.
And that it's actually harder to stay doing the things that you're doing. It's harder for the civilization will grind itself into the ground the way that it's going, but it's scary to change because there's this unknown out there. But it's actually easier to change once you do it and you see that your civilization begins to heal and prosper and again. And
it's interesting you mentioned that, because about a month ago I stopped smoking marijuana. I used to smoke all the time. If you saw me at a convention, I was high all the fucking time. And I love marijuana, and I will always love marijuana. But I decided to stop smoking. It's been a month now. Yeah, good for me, right? I would love nothing more than to smoke a bowl right now, because I know that if I did, especially, what's that?
It's bad for creatives.
You know, I don't know. I've had some pretty big breakthroughs while I've been high, but I don't want to attribute those breakthroughs to being high, so to speak, which is one of the reasons why I decided to stop doing it, and just to prove to myself I could. I don't need to be committed to any drug or substance in order to do what I do. But it's also very challenging. But at the same time, it's like you make that change, and after you make that change, it's hard to look back and revert, because once you revert, you feel like you're letting yourself down.
But it made sense once to smoke marijuana and be a creative.
Oh, absolutely. It still makes sense. I would love nothing more than to be high right now.
I should say, it's not that it is bad for creatives. It can be bad for creatives.
It can. Anything can be bad.
Yeah.
You know, I think I think any too much of anything. You could even use weight loss as an example. You know, everybody take someone who's really fat. Like, I was really overweight a year ago, and I realized that if I continued to go down the path I would have a shorter lifespan. I was having problems with my liver and my feet, and just things were just going down a really bad path. And then I decided, okay, if I don't want that anymore. So I had to make that change. The changes ended up being positive, and I enjoyed the process of losing that weight and being where I am now. And I still have a long way to go, but whatever, you kind of take it in stride. It's a mental change that has to happen within you. I think when you're trying to force too many people to change too fast, I think that's the challenge that we face, especially with what's going on right now. But overall, is change good? Yeah, absolutely. If we didn't make progress, then I don't think we would be human. I think that's part of that's what makes us such amazing creatures, is if you look back on where we were, say, just 500 years ago to now, it's like we were barbarians 500 years ago. Now look at us. We're civilized. We got all this shit going on, and, we can talk to each other without being in the same room.
We still have the barbarian inside of us. Yeah. I always say, like when a house cat goes and kills a mouse or something, no one ever says, why'd the cat do that? It's a cat. What do you think? It's still a wild cat. Human beings might be domesticated, but we're still, we still have that wild animal inside of us.
I agree with you. I agree with you. And these phones and these screens and these articles, they're like catnip. It's bringing out that bad side. Now, my friend, we're at the end of our show now, and I want to give you a chance to send people to your website. So take it away. Give us one last final shout out. Tell us where we can find you and all that great stuff.
Yeah, well, we're at nomad with 2ds.net, nomad.net. I think the best way to read our books right now is probably just on Comixology. I lowered the price of all the books to 99 cents. The first 3 Nomad books, I would recommend at least getting the first one. Check it out if you like it. It's lettered by Tom Orzechowski that did the classic run on the Uncanny X-Men. His letters in this book, I think, are really beautiful, by the way. Good comic book lettering. Can't turn it down. And I don't know when our books are going to be in stores, but they will be soon. And there'll be a lot more new content coming in the months to come.
Excellent. My friend, thank you so much for coming on the show. Thank you for taking time out of your schedule to be here with me. And I've got to tell you, you really had an impact on me today, and I appreciate it. We don't get to talk to each other much when we're at these shows, but I learned a lot from you today, and you're full of wisdom, and I see a lot of success in your future. So, we stand together shoulder to shoulder, and, we'll get there together, man.
Absolutely. I look forward to seeing you at a show soon. And I know that there's a million things I wanted to say I couldn't say. So
we'll always I'll always have an opportunity for you to come back on.
All right.
Yeah,
all right.
Absolutely. All right, my friend. You take care. Yep. What a great episode. Andrew is one of my favorite people in this business. Just seeing his drive and his his fortitude and all this, and getting a chance to actually talk with him today really had a really positive impact on me. And I love talking to my guests on the show. I think it's a very important. It's really helping me get through this. And it's helping me with the creative process too. I take everything every special guest comes on the show says to heart, and it has helped me make leaps and bounds with everything I'm doing. So thank you all so much for tuning in today. We'll be back tomorrow with another episode. And until that time comes, onward to victory.